Hello folks, and welcome to a new tutorial by Tiny Games Lab. This time I'm gonna teach you guys how to do a hidden panel menu. Okay, so the objective of this session are to use the GUI, mouse and draw events and how they relate to each other. Use some scripts for easing effects and create an awesome menu effect like this one you see on the screen. Okay, and this tutorial was brought to you by myself and also by CoderFun. And CoderFun has asked me to create a tutorial like this, and he has also provided help doing all the art of this tutorial. So you see some amazing art on this tutorial, and that was not done by myself, was all done by CoderFun. Okay, so a big thanks for him to help me out doing this tutorial. Okay, so for the menu system, basically what is it composed of? So it's going to be composed of a GUI element. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And this element is going to be stretched to the room, to the same size of the room, but it can be a different size also. And for that, there's a lot of tutorials around. And we're going to have a panel that's going to be drawn directly to this element. And this panel is going to be able to slide in and slide out of view. So it's going to be hidden sometimes, and you can slide it in when you click the button. And it's going to have some icons on it. And these icons, you're going to be able to swipe them around and move them around up and down to choose whatever icon you want to. Okay. And how we're going to go about on clicking on these GUI elements? No. So first we need to obtain their coordinates in relation to the GUI. So we're going to have the center of this sprites, we're going to call them buttons, and we're going to have the X position and the Y position in relation to the GUI element, and we're going to have a width and a height, and with that we're going to define a bounding box for this sprite in this GUI element. And basically what we're going to do, we're going to take the mouse coordinates to the GUI and check if it is inside or outside when we're checking for clicking events and all that. And lastly, for the swipe movement, how we're going to do it? Basically, we're going to have a DS list, and on this DS list, we're going to have 5 spots. And whenever a mouse click event happens, I'm going to populate all 5 spots with the mouse Y position, because I'm just checking for Y swipes in this moment. And when you move the mouse around while holding the mouse button, the left button, it's going to be updating this list and containing all the values from the start to the point you're releasing the mouse button. So it's gonna contain the last 5 frames of the mouse position. And whenever you end the click, it's gonna calculate the difference between the frame you are at, or the step you are at, and the last 5 steps. And that difference is gonna use it and input that value into the button objects, and it's gonna give a speed in relation to that distance. So in that way we're simulating a swipe movement of these objects. Okay, so let's head to the code. So inside GameMaker Studio, first thing we're going to do is create some sprites. So let's start by creating a sprite icon age. This is basically the sprites with the hovering effect. So let me find the assets. And there we go, assets, icons. Okay, so CoderFun has done 14 icons for us, so I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to center the sprites, and you can see they're very nice drawings. And then I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to have sprite icons, and I'm going to use the version that has the shadows and the outlines. So that's going to be the unhovered version of the sprites. I'm going to add a new sprite. It's going to be sprite panel. That's the green panel that we see on the background. So I'm going to choose this panel here. You can see it. And what I'm going to do is select the origin, and let's get it maybe 92 and 0. Okay, so this is the origin I want for this object. And I'm gonna add some 2 sprites, sprite left and sprite right, which are gonna be my arrows. There we go, 1 arrow, and let's add a second one. Okay, sprite right, selecting the arrow, and perfect. So I'm gonna add a background also, BG720, because that's the size of the room I'm going to use. Sliding menu, assets, okay. And you can see this nice grid effect background. and I'm gonna start by adding some scripts. The first script I'm gonna use is gonna be isOutCube. Okay, that's an easing script. So basically isOutCube. It's gonna take into time and duration of the effect. So the code I got from the site gizmo.com/easing. So if you guys want to go in and check it out, it's very nice, has all the easing codes. So basically I'm going to set some variables. So var t equals argument 0, so that's the time we're in, the step we're in. Var b equals 0, so that's going to be our start position for the easing. Var c is equal to 1, so that's the change in the value that I want easing. And var d equals our duration. So with this, I'm basically having easing between 0 and 1. Okay, so t divided equal to d, and then minus 1 on the t minus minus, and I'm gonna return the c times the t cubed plus 1 plus the b value. Okay, so that's an easing script. So the second thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna new a script button coordinates, sorry. And with that, I'm gonna check and get the coordinates of all the buttons I have. So I'm gonna have 3 inputs, X, Y, and the sprite I'm gonna be using. So the button X is gonna be the argument 0. The button Y is gonna be the argument 1. And then let's calculate the button width. It's gonna be equal to sprite get bb box right, okay, of argument 2, sorry, sprite, okay, of argument 2 minus the same thing, but I'm gonna use the bounding box left. Perfect. So with that I get the width, and then I'm gonna do the same for the height of the sprite and bottom and top. Okay, so I'm assuming it's centered, the sprites. If not, you can usually direct the bounding box positions for this function. So I'm gonna calculate the left position, so it's gonna be button left is gonna be button X minus button width div by 2, because I don't want, there we go, I want a round number. And the button right position is gonna be button X plus width minus 1, minus 1, okay. And let's do the same for the top position. So button top is gonna be equal to button Y minus button height div 2, and the button bottom is going to be equal to button top plus button height minus 1, button height minus 1, and I'm going to return false just to return something. Okay, and I have a mistake here, let me just correct. On the button right it's going to be button left plus button width minus 1. Perfect. And let's add a new script. The last one is going to be our script check for click. So I'm going to be checking for the clicks of that values of the button left right position we saw. So first I'm going to set a variable called mouse over, and it's going to be equal to point in rectangle. So that's when I'm going to check for the mouse position of the device mouse x to GUI 0. Perfect, because I want the x position in relation to the GUI, not in relation to the world. Same thing with the y. And then we're going to check for button left, button top, button right, and button bottom. Okay, so we know the mouse is over our sprite of our buttons, which will be drawn to the GUI layer. Okay, so I'm going to check first if the mouse is not over. So if we're not over the buttons, I'm going to set a variable called button pressed equals to false. So we're not able to press the button if we're not over. But if we are over on the else statement, I'm going to check first if mouse check button pressed and the left. Okay, so I'm checking for the pressing of the left mouse button. So if the mouse was pressed, I'm going to set this variable to button press equals to true. Perfect. And I'm going to have an else statement, and if mouse check button release, so have I released the left mouse button while on top of this button, and the button was pressed beforehand, I'm going to return true. Okay, otherwise I'm going to return false for everything. Perfect. So with that, I can know if it returns true, it means that I clicked on a button on the GUI layer. Let me create quickly a room, 720 by 720. And let's set the foreground, perfect. And let's start by creating some objects. First object I'm going to create is the panel itself, so I'm going to give it a depth of 10. And I'm going to create it. On my create event, I'm going to set some variables. So first, the X position is going to be the room width. That's why we set the origin to that position. And the Y equals to 0, so it's on the right side of the screen, kind of off screen. I'm going to set the button sprite to sprite left. So that's going to be the button we're going to have on our panel. Button press to false and mouse over to false. Those are the two variables we're going to be switching with the scripts. Then I'm going to get a script button coordinate. I'm going to call this script, and I'm going to give the positions of X minus 36 and Y plus 74 for my sprite left. So that's where our button is going to be positioned, the left and right button. And I'm going to set a mouse list. It's going to be a DS list create. So like I said, we need to create a new list for the Y positions of the mouse. I'm going to set a timer to -1 and a slide open variable to false, so I know if it's open or closed, our menu. And I'm going to set my display GUI size to 720 by 720. Okay, I'm going to give it the sprite panel sprite, and on the step event, first thing we're going to do is we're going to check for any clicks. So we're going to simply do that by using the script check for clicked. So if we have the script check for click is true, then we're going to set our timer to 30. So basically that's it. We know we have clicked the button, the left arrow button. And let's write our sliding code. So if timer is above 0, okay, so we need to slide the panel in. And if slide open equals to false, so let's say the panel is closed, I'm gonna set my X position to my room width minus 264 times isOutCub, that's our easing function, 30 minus timer to 30. So our time is gonna be increasing and our maximum time is gonna be 30. So I'm gonna copy this. So let's say it's open, so I need it to close down. So I'm gonna add 264, perfect, minus 264, and this should work out fine. And our timer equals to -1, so we're going to be reducing from the timer as the time goes by. So let's check when we hit 0, which means we have done all the easing and the panel has reached the final positions. So if it is equal to 0, let me copy this. Let's check if the slide is open, so we're gonna switch this variable to false, so slide open equals to false. And also I'm gonna switch the button, so my button sprite is not gonna be the left sprite anymore, it's gonna be the right, meaning that I have a button to close this panel. And else, I'm just switch these variables around, so let me copy, and slide open is gonna be to false, and the sprite is gonna be sprite left. Perfect. And I'm gonna reduce one on timer, so I wanted the timer to be -1, so it doesn't run the code anymore unless we click again. So for the swipe commands, let's start with the if slide open equals true, so I want to do it only when the panel is open, and our device mouse X to GUI, so I want to check my X position in relation to the GUI, is greater or equal to my GUI width, so the size of my GUI, minus 264, which is the size of my panel. So I want to be clicking inside the panel to do the swipe. And if my mouse check button pressed, mouse button left, perfect. Let's open this if statement. So if I have clicked for the first time inside this position, I'm gonna do a for loop to fill in the mouse list. So for var I equals 0, I minus equal 5, I plus plus, mouse list. Okay, there we go. And I'm gonna use an accessor. So mouse Y position, perfect. So I'm getting this, and let me copy this. So yeah, so I want to be my device mouse Y to GUI. Okay, so that's gonna fill in when I first click the screen. Second thing we're gonna do inside this if statement, perfect. Let's check if the mouse button is still pressed. So let's say we're moving the mouse around. I want to move every object with the mouse. So I'm gonna set a new variable. So sorry, first I'm gonna insert this value to the screen, to the list. So I'm gonna setting and inserting the value to the 0 position of the list or the mouse Y position. And I'm gonna remove the last value of the list. So mouse list and ds list size. So we're gonna get the size -1 of our course list, or mouse list, sorry. And let's set this variable called move equals to mouse list 0 position minus the 1 position. So I know how much I moved on the last step on the mouse list. And what I want to do with this, I want to go with every object icon. And I want to change the Y position. So let me create just object icons. Perfect. So I want to change the Y position of every object icon. So I is going to be equals plus other dot move. So whenever I'm holding the mouse down and I move around, it's gonna fix that movement to my objects. And lastly, we're gonna check for the mouse button release of the mouse button left. Okay, so if I have released the mouse button, I'm gonna set the velocity to mouse list, the 0 position, sorry, minus the first or the last position in my mouse list. So ds list size, same thing we did up there, mouse list -1, perfect. So I'm getting the difference between the last and the first position in the mouse list. And what I'm going to do with object icons, I'm going to set the speed or the vertical speed to this value divided by 10. Perfect. Lastly, I want to update my button position. So I'm going to use the script button coordinates, x -36, y +74, sprite left. So I update the button whenever I move. Okay, and I saw there's a little mistake over here. Okay, so this is going to be -264 plus 264. Perfect. So it opens and closes correctly. Let's close this. And let's add a draw event. I'm going to give an empty draw event so we don't draw anything to the screen, only to the GUI layer. You can do that differently, but I want to do that way. And on the draw GUI event, I'm going to draw self, and then I'm going to draw my sprite button. So button sprite, 0 subimage, button X, and button Y. Perfect. Okay, so let's add the icons objects. Oh, sorry, I already have it. So I'm gonna set the sprite to the icons on my create event. I'm gonna set some variables. First is image speed equals to 0. I don't want to be switching images. Button press equals false, and mouse over equals false also. And let's get our coordinates of each button. So script button coordinates of my O panel X +132, Y position, and the sprite icons. Okay, so I'm setting everything in relation to the panel object. And for sliding, so it stops, I'm gonna add a friction to these buttons. So on my step event, first let's update our positions. So script button coordinates, panel X +132, Y, and script icons, perfect. And then I want to check my mouse over. So if script check for click, perfect. So have I clicked these buttons? If yes, I'm going to show a little message saying clicked icon. And let's give the number of the icon by adding string image index, perfect. Draw event is going to be an empty draw event, so we don't draw anything. And on draw GUI event, that's when I'm going to draw. So let's say if mouse over, so if that variable is true, let's draw our sprite icons, hover, okay, image index, button X and button Y. So we want to draw in the same place, perfect. And else, Let's do the same thing, draw a sprite, but with the regular sprite, not the hovering sprite. Image, index, perfect, button X and button Y. Okay, so let's close this, and let's create, lastly, object controller. That's just to draw our icons to the screen. So on the create event, I'm going to create a for loop. So just want to create all the buttons in one piece of code. So for y equals 0, y less than 14, I plus plus. So let's create an instance variable. So create instance of the x position object banner plus 132, y equals minus 82 times 100, 200 times I, and icons, so it's all one below the other. And let's add the image index to the I. Perfect. So that should work out. Let's add this controller object to the screen. Let's add also the panel to the room, and there we go. Looks good to me. And save and try it. Okay, so it initiated clicking the buttons already, so I might have a problem with this. And I got an error. Which mouse over? Okay, yeah, I probably have a typo here, so let me check. And that's mouse over, not mouse outer. Save and try it again. Okay, so it's already clicking the button, so that's not right also. Let's try to get out of this screen. And on my step event, oh, there you go. This is a function, so I need to add the brackets to it. So script check for click, that's a function, not a variable. And that should work out. So it opens. Oh, sorry. And yes, list delete mouse cost list instead of mouse list. Okay, so another typo, sorry guys. Let me go down here, let me find it. There you go. It's mouse list instead of cause list. And let's try it again, and everything should work out fine this time. I'm sorry for all the tries I made you guys watch. And there we go. So it works perfectly. So it's swiping perfectly. Okay, I can go up and down, I can click, and I'm shown which object I have clicked, which button. So this works very nice. If I close it, it closes and opens, and it uses this easing effect. And I can click different buttons, I get different results, and I swipe up and down, and I get all this. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial. I hope you liked it. And if you like this content and want to see more of this content, please subscribe to my channel. That's very important to me. If you want to be notified when I get new videos out, please click on that bell button. And I hope you really enjoyed. And please go ahead and watch different videos from my channel, different tutorials I have made. And thank you very much for Coder Fun for helping me out with this tutorial. All the art for this tutorial is done by him. You can see it's an amazing art. Thank you, and I see you guys on the next tutorials.